Hey folks, on to 8.1. Be sure to actually read the section. They kind of go over a lot of things. So for example, they'll go over things like 3 squared, 4 squared, 5 squared. 3 squared is 3 times 3, which is 9. 4 squared, 4 times 4 is 16. 25. So they keep going with the lists. And then they also, well, let's just look at this. So let's say we have the square root of 9. That would just be 3. So we're just playing the game backwards. So if they say the square root of 16, what number times itself gives us 16? Well, that would be 4. So a square root sort of undoes a square. So try and figure out something that makes sense in your head. So for example, so the square root of 49, is it out of focus? Focus. Sorry about that. Square root of 9 is 3, square root of 16 is 4, square root of 49 is, what number times itself is 49? 7. Okay. So then they give us like cubes. So again, read the section. 2 cubed, 3 cubed, 4 cubed. So 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. Or 8. 3 cubed is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. 4 cubed, 4 times 4 times 4, 64. 5 cubed, 125. So if they say something like the cube root of 64, that would just be 4. That's a tricky one. Is that right? My brain's melting. 4 times 4 times 4. 4 times 4 times 4. 64. Whew, okay. Notice the difference. So the square root of 64, though, what number times itself? That would just be 8. Aha. The cube root of 1? Oh, 1 times 1 times 1. So the cube root of 1 is 1. What's the square root of 1? Square root of 1 is 1. Oh, okay. So let's see. A couple more ideas. Oh, so you see if it's a little square root, technically there's a little 2 here, but you don't have to put it. If it's a cube root or 4th root or 5th root, you always have to put the little number. So you could put the little 2, but if there is no 2, we just assume it to be second root, square root. 3 we call cube root sometimes, or usually. Okay. What's the square root of negative 4? Square root of negative 4? What number times itself gives you negative 4? Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. 2 times 2 is positive 4. So here we would say no real number. So you can't take square roots of negative numbers. On a side note, let's just say we did negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. That would give us negative 8. So the cube root of negative 8, therefore, is negative 2. What number times itself 3 times? Negative 2 gives us negative 8. Negative 2 times negative 2 is negative 2 is negative 8. So the cube root of negative 8 is negative 2. So basically, yeah, that should be good. You'll notice that this is an odd power. So if it's an odd power, you can take odd roots of negatives. If it's even, like a 2, you can't take even roots of negatives. Oh, we call these roots, by the way, or sometimes radical. We might call this radical 9, square root 9, or maybe radical 9 or rad 9. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I think you're going to find 8.1 pretty mellow. 8.2, actually, they get interesting. So 8.1 is just a warm-up. So let's try number 2. Let's see, they give us a square root of 169. And they're going to give us all nice numbers in 8.1. So it turns out what number times itself is 169? 13, because 13 times 13 is 169. Next question, they give us negative square root of 100. So remember we were talking before, you can't take square roots of negative numbers, but we're not taking square root of a negative number. We're taking square root of positive 100. And what's the square root of positive 100? 10. Oh, and there's a negative hanging out in front going along for the ride. Okay, so it's just negative, and then the square root of 100 happens to be 10. Okay, that makes sense. you should have a square root button on your calculator. Try and find it. It'll save you lots of time. So you might be able to just press like 169 square root, and it'll spit out 13. So let's check out 8a, negative square root of 400. So there's a negative hanging out in front. Okay, it's going along for the ride. Square root of 400, ask your calculator, 20. Cool. 8b, square root of negative 36. Square root of a negative. Oh, I can't take square roots of negative numbers. No real, or not a real number. Not a real number, no real number. Let me see what the back of the book says. I want to say not a real number. The book, let's see what it says. Should I have looked this up before I made the video? Yeah, probably. Come on, let's see. Okay, number 9. It said not real number. Not, bad grammar. Not real number. Okay. Not real number. Cool. Okay, let's go back. So, again, 8.1, pretty mellow. Ooh, then they get into, let's see, do they get into anything interesting? Fourth roots, third roots, fifth roots. Okay, let's try 12. A, cube root of 27. So, again, if you look back in the section, if you do the reading, they'll list a bunch of cubes. And we talked about this one. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So the cube root of 27 is 3. Because 3 cubed is 27. B, fourth root of 16. What number times itself 4 times? Like number times number. So turns out 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. I make it look easy because I'm familiar with these numbers. 12c, fifth root of 243. Aha! Here's one I don't know. Fifth root of 243. So here's what I'm basically thinking. Is it 2 to the 5th? Is it 3 to the 5th? Is it 4 to the 5th? Is it 5 to the 5th? Like, is the answer going to be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6? Now, 2 is an even number. See how there's a 3 here? So I'm going to try the 3 first. 3 to the 5th. So on my little calculator, I'm going to go 3, and then there's an arrow pointing up. Maybe you have a Y to the X button. My fancy calculator has a little arrow pointing up. So I hit that button. Am I in focus? Okay, so 3 to the 5th power. Enter. Oh, 243. Boom. So that's just 3. Okay. 18. 18. Third root of negative 5, 12. Part A. Ooh, it's a negative number underneath the radical sign, but it's odd. It's cube root, so I can go ahead and do it. And let's see. Maybe it's 4. 4 to the 3rd. So let me see what 4 times 4 times 4 is. No, that's 64. 512. 8? 8 times 8 times 8? Aha! So 8 times 8 times 8 is 512. So the answer here, so basically negative 8 times negative 8 times negative 8 is negative 512. So the cube root of negative 512 is negative 8. Ponder, make sure that makes sense. B, fourth root of negative 81. Aha! A negative is underneath the radical. Is the number of the root, is it even or odd? It's even. Oh, if it's even, you can't take even roots of negative numbers. So we say not real number in bad grammar. Not real number. Okay. And then C, fifth root of negative 1. Negative underneath the radical. Ooh, fifth root, that's odd. So we can do this. What number times itself 5 times would give us negative 1? Oh, that would just be negative 1. Why? Because negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. So what number times itself 5 times gives us negative 1? Negative 1. Okay. Ponder, ponder, ponder. In the following exercise, estimate each root between two consecutive whole numbers. Estimate each root. Approximate. Okay. That was confusingly worded. Let's see. 20. Square root of 55. So, yeah, so these are old school problems. Like, we have calculators now, so we would just throw this into our calculator and take the square root of 55. But back in the day, we couldn't just throw things into our calculator. So we'd kind of estimate things. So that's what they're doing right now. So it's just good to know how to do it. So the square root of 55. Okay, well, what perfect squares are near 55? So 49 is a perfect square, and 64 is a perfect square. And that's 7, and that's 8. So the square root of 55 is somewhere between 7 and 8. So I don't know, square root of 55 is probably like 7.5 or something. So on my calculator, if I just do the square root of 55 just for fun, it's probably about 7.5. Oh, 7.4. Okay, so we estimated that square root of 55 is somewhere between 7 and 8. Okay. Part B. Cube root of 137. Okay, I don't know my cube roots very well. So, let's see. What's 3 cubed? 4 cubed. You gotta turn your calculator on. 4 cubed is 64. 5 cubed is 125. Okay. And so 6 cubed is 216. So the cube root of 125, cube root of 216, that's 5. This is 6. So the cube root of 137 is between 5 and 6. It's a little bit closer to the 5 than the 6. So the answer is probably like 5.1 or 5.2. Let's find out. So I'm going to cheat. Don't watch what I'm doing. 137 to the 5.15. So about 5.2. Okay. Approximate each root and round to 2 decimal places. What the heck? They want us to approximate each root and round to 2 decimal places. Well, let me see how they do that. So we'll pause the video right there. Yeah, that makes sense. Estimate each root. Okay. We're going to pause right there as I read the instructions. 13-minute video. Not bad.